today's project is we got some Fox. How do you spell Fox? You gotta put it this way. Fox Podium piggyback shocks out of a Polaris RZR 800S, whatever S means. Super. We gotta rebuild them. 2 rears, 2 fronts. I took one apart already so we could I need to order O-rings. Probably should. And I gotta get some oil anyhow. And I dropped the gauge. The gauge is kind of honky. Jumps around here a little bit. I gotta get one of those. So we got this apart enough to get parts. So we gotta go order parts. Stay tuned. Okay, the first step is you gotta take the spring off. And what you really need is 2 spanning wrenches. There's a lock nut and adjusting nut to preload the spring. So you got back the jam nut off, and then you can loosen the spring. And a lot of times you can hold the adjuster nut and turn that with the spring, which is what we're doing here. And we're prying the rubber out of the way to get the spring hanger off and the spring off. And just try that. Look at the air. That's air in the top of that cylinder. So that means the gas is leaking past the IFP or out of the cylinder. So now we're going to remove the little plastic ball that protects a socket for the filler valve. And the filler valve is basically a set screw with a hole drilled in it. So we're going to check gas pressure here. I don't know if you'll be able to see the gauge, but there is no gas in them. Yeah, nothing. So there's a little hole through it. This little set screw. And then that goes against a little rubber, like piece of rubber the size of a pencil eraser. And that goes down in the hole, and then you push against it with that set screw. Once you poke through it with your inflation needle and charge it, you jam the set screw in there, and that shrinks up rubber down and seals it up. It's a pretty cool little idea. Here we're popping off the reservoir cap. And then we're going to take a picture to send to the customer showing that we got oil on the wrong side of the IFP. That should be only gas there. So that could be why our shock rod is moving with no resistance there. I'm going to pull out the IFP. Look how dirty that oil is in there. I'm going to dump the oil out of there. We'll pull out the shock rod next. Now this has got a little protective cap. You pop that up out of there. And I don't know if you noticed, but when we took the reservoir cap out, there's a little wire ring in there. So here we're going to push the gland into the cylinder board a little bit so we can get the ring out. Digging at the ring. Okay, there's a snap ring holding the rod in there. That'll pull right up out of there. This is standard shock stuff we've seen before. Okay, and here's the other shock. We're going to take another one apart here. We'll just watch this one, same procedure as last time.
Okay, we got our kits in for our RZR shocks, so we'll knock them out here today. These are pretty good kits, they're $65. Well, they come with a new nut for the piston, wear bands. I don't know what's in there somewhere, the little rubber plug for the fill valve, and the little white pellet that plugs it. Right there's a little white pellet. Right there's the rubber plug. Nice kits. Probably really don't need all this shit, but we'll put in as much as it can. Some of it might go in here to this dampening adjusting thing, which looks like you may have to have some, I don't know how you get it apart, but we'll see. Yeah. Got a new gauge on our fill valve here. This one here. This one here. It jumps around here just by moving it around. Yeah, there's almost 50 pounds, 25. Hit it on the back to knock it to 0. There's 40 pounds. Hit it on the back to knock it down. Probably not the most accurate thing.
Okay, so we're going to reassemble these. I'm going to put some new seals in some of the parts here. Pull apart this shock piston and gland, get new seals in that. And what we do for the piston here, we put that on a little bolt, and that keeps all your valves in the right orientation. And we put it on the same way as it goes on the shaft. You know, the nut would be the nut side. And we're cleaning out between them. Valves with some brake cleaner and compressed air. Reservoir cap, taking the O-rings out of that. Here's the IFP lead screw, taking the O-ring off of that. Taking the O-ring off the IFP itself. A little trick if you watch there. Well, you didn't see it. Gland off. Take the pressure seal out of that. That holds the oil back from leaking out the rod. It's kind of hard to get into without stabbing yourself. Alright, there goes that. And there's a backup, hard backup plastic washer in there too. Outside O-ring. Wash my hands and cancer in a can. Get our kit out. Now we didn't use all the O-rings in this kit. You know, there's that remote reservoir unscrews and there's an O-ring that goes there, but I don't really have the right tools to take them apart, and there's probably some O-rings in that clicker, but we didn't take that apart, so there's really no sense in taking it apart just to change the O-rings. And on these there's a removable cap, I guess you'd call it. It has the dirt scraper or ice scraper if it was a snowmobile shock. On a snowmobile shock, that's all on the gland, so I don't know if it's to kind of keep dirt out a little bit better, maybe, I don't know. But there's that goes on, and then there's your gland. It has the pressure seal and a backup washer. The Good rule of thumb is always the O-ring towards the oil. So you put that seal in. If you slow down to look at it, you can tell that one side is like an O-ring toward in it, and that would go towards the oil, and then the backup washer would go above it towards the outside. So the seal always goes towards the oil, I guess, is the rule of thumb. Seal being the O-ring, not the hard plastic. And that goes for hydraulic cylinders or anything that you're trying to hold oil. Okay, so we're going to take that off just like that, slide it right on. Use the new nut. Tighten to like 15 foot-pounds, so just a good little snugging up is good. And then there's an O-ring that goes on that piston to help push the wear band out against the shock body, which is kind of cool. So here we're going to reassemble it. We're going to fill it up with oil. That down in there. Try to get some air worked out of those, between those washers or those valves and the valve stack on the piston. And then you get the oil right there and then work it down and kind of work the air out and get the gland in there. Put your snap ring in there. Tap your cover in there, work it up and down a couple times. You can tell if there's air in there, it'll go free at the very end. So that was good. So now we're going to set the IFP depth, put that in there, change the O-ring, and then that wear band, you got to wind that up, get that kind of like the memory so it'll wrap around that piston a little easier. So you don't have to struggle so hard getting that down into the bore. Alright, so the O-ring towards the oil like always, wear band would be towards the top. That wear band's tough to get in there. You got to be careful. That's why it took so long to get it in there. The wear band wants to catch so bad, so you got to be careful putting it in there and check it and make sure it goes in there nice. So now we've got the depth setting. I'm going to put the bleed screw in there and then dump the excess oil off the top. Reservoir cap, put it back on there, and that snap ring that holds that in there. Put the little rubber pill in there, and our little set screw valve, and that shock will be ready to recharge.
Okay, we got the shock project complete. Had to tear apart two of the rear ones because we had the IFP depth setting wrong, which was 3.4 inches. So we set that, and then I set the depth with the back of this, which is like 2 3/4. I don't know what the hell I was doing. It's tough to be stupid. So we had to do two of them over. Well, we should reset the IFPs, but no big deal. But they're all set to go. Got all the used parts. We're going to score a few miscellaneous stuff here out of the old ones, a couple of O-rings. That's the little filler pill. And then this little plastic ball goes in there's like a set screw with a little tiny hole in it, and this goes in the set screw hole to keep dirt out. Now these are off a razor, and they're way dirtier than like a snowmobile shock. It's kind of unbelievable. it's believable because they're in the dirt, but I've never taken one apart, so I never really realized it. All I did was snowmobile shocks that are in the snow, and they're not much dirt. So I see the good.